Grant Hill's one of the few players who played long enough to face Jordan's Bulls and LeBron's Heat. Jason Kidd, I think, is also in that mix, but Grant joins us now. All right, Grant. Better team, LeBron's Heat or Mike's Bulls?
Well, I knew you'd ask that question. I go with the Bulls, and it's no knock on LeBron and his team. Obviously, they're the best team of this era. I think certainly having won the last 2 years and being in the finals 4 years in a row. But some of those Bulls teams that Michael was on were some of the best teams possibly of all time, and so I definitely have to go with. I think I wasn't around for his first 3 championships, so definitely I was around for the second 3, 96, 97, 98, and those Bulls teams were pretty darn good.
Yeah, but you faced the Bulls when they went 72-10. That was
Right.
your second year in the league, I think.
And I think we beat them one game. You might want to have your people check, but I think we beat them one game that year.
So you dominated Jordan, is what you're saying.
I mean, I had one game where I had a triple-double, beat them in Detroit, the year they won 72 games. So, yeah, I got the better of him that day.
Better defender, LeBron or Jordan?
It's such a different game now. The game is so different. I think that's tough. I think LeBron, he's a great defender just because of, obviously he's a great athlete. He's physically bigger, bigger than Jordan and probably can guard more positions than Michael. But Michael was a dog defensively. And, I think the game was different because it was more physical back then. And certainly Michael was allowed to get away with more. I think because the game was more physical and because he was Michael. But, Michael had that lockdown, I'll dominate you on the defensive end just as I dominate on the offensive end. And so, I think they're both great, but I probably will give the nod to Michael too.
But is there star treatment now like that was back in the 90s or 80s?
That's a good question. I think you can easily say star treatment, but I think when you're a great player like a Michael and or a LeBron, it may seem like you're getting a lot of the calls, but one, you're a great player, and two, 9 times out of 10, the ball is in your hands more often, and so you have more opportunities to score.
But be honest, though, Grant, were you ever whistled for a phantom foul just because the official wasn't sure who to call a foul on guarding Jordan?
I didn't guard Jordan so much. I'd say maybe Kobe. Some of those years in 2009 when I was in Phoenix and he was obviously in L.A.
So they would just whistle you and say foul, and then you go, wait, what did I didn't touch him.
Well, put it this way. I used to get more calls in Detroit than I did when I was in Phoenix. And obviously my Detroit years, I was one of those type of players.
So when you were an all-star, you thought you were getting more calls than you did when you were with Phoenix.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I mean, obviously, I had the ball. I took more shots in those days, so I had more opportunities to get fouled.
But Grant, why do the great players get more calls than the guy who's not so great, who does need a call?
Because they're great.
No, it shouldn't work that way. No.
I mean, look, obviously officiating is not an exact science. And, I think sometimes having been on both sides, having been a player who early in my career maybe got the benefit of the doubt at times, and then, at the end of my career, old guy trying to guard the LeBrons and the Kobes, every once in a while, just kind of like, okay, I don't know if I really fouled him on that play, or, and so you – but I mean, I think officials are human, and officials certainly, these guys are great players, and they do amazing things on the court, and sometimes we get caught up in the moment, and so I know in that Western Conference Finals back in 2010, I remember about 5 calls, particularly in Game 1, that a few calls in Game 1 against the Lakers where I got to question whether I really fouled him or not. But, part of getting fouls and part of, getting to the line is gamesmanship, and working the officials and selling a foul. And, so, I mean, it's all part of the game. I'm not complaining. Well, I am complaining, but I'm not.
But so Jordan in your second year in the league and then Kobe later in your career, can you assess tougher to stop, when you're looking at just the the scoring abilities of those two?
Yeah, I always felt like Jordan was more efficient, and Jordan kind of got what he wanted. It wasn't, I think sometimes with Kobe it was a bit of, a degree of difficulty. And, I think Jordan, my assessment and having played against both, I felt like Jordan would get his 30, 35, 40, but it was always kind of within the flow. It was always within the rhythm and the flow of the triangle offense. And I think, and so, which was difficult, obviously, and I guarded him some. Dumars used to guard him a lot. Felt like Kobe, he would just do anything. He wasn't always going to trust the offense, and he would break it and just go, and was capable of doing so, and was given, obviously the green light to do so. So Kobe would hit a lot of tough shots. I thought Kobe might have been a better long-range shooter, in terms of hitting shots in traffic. Hitting shots with people hanging on him. Whereas Jordan, I thought from 15 feet and then mid-range, getting to the basket, really getting to the free throw line. I just felt like he was more of an efficient scorer than Kobe. But also, too, it was tough. I mean, back in those days, guarding Jordan, I got a chance to go back at him in the other end. And, I was on that kind of level where I was getting 20, 25 shots a game. And so I used to always say sometimes the best defense is good offense. And, in Phoenix, I might get 8 shots. So Kobe got a chance to rest on me, when he was playing defense. And so, they both were difficult in different ways.
What do you do if you're Kevin Love? Where's the ideal place for him?
Wow. I like Kevin Love's game, and I think so much has been made about his teammates and not being in the ideal situation, but also on the flip side, if you're that kind of player, you're supposed to be a playoff team. You're supposed to get your players in, and so I'm not totally putting the blame on him, but it seems, or at least it appears, there's all this noise that he's probably going to be leaving, either this year or next year. I can see him staying in the West, maybe going, just talk about the Lakers. Obviously, it depends on Kobe and his health. I think there's a lot of teams that would love to have him that would be a good fit. I don't know. I think he's in a good situation in that he can, he's at a level, he's playing at a great level. He can do so many things on the court. And I know Houston has made some noise about trying to get him. I'm sure there's 10 teams lining up trying to get Kevin Love. And so, in terms of what's the best situation for him, I think he probably wants to play with a good point guard. I think he wants to play with somebody who can help get him the ball. And certainly this league is a point guard-driven league. But he probably wants to go somewhere where he has a chance to win. And, a lot can happen between now and next season when he's officially a free agent. So I don't see him staying. In terms of where he goes, I don't know.
How shocked were you that the Clippers went for $2 billion?
I was real shocked, considering I was in the mix.
But you only bid at 1 point. How much? Okay, Grant. How much of the $1.2 billion was your money?
I was going to put up a substantial 8-figure amount. And so,
wow.
Obviously, the way it would have stood or way it would have worked out was the three of us would have been managing partners. And, obviously I wouldn't be putting in the bulk of the capital. But, and certainly they had more money than I did. But for what I have, it was certainly a substantial amount.
But do you think this was a fair bidding process?
No. But I don't think it was ever promised that it would be fair. So, It is what it is.
Okay, but why? Why did it play out that way? Were you told that this was a bidding process, that you didn't get a chance to even counter, that it was all of a sudden, there's our bid, and then you found out he bid $2 billion, and then he got the team?
Well, we were never promised it was a clean process, put it that way. And
what's that mean?
I think, it just wasn't clean. I mean, I think, ultimately, you got to understand, I guess, obviously the scenario or the situation. Everything was sort of rushed and expedited. Things were trying to get done. You don't normally do $1 billion or $2 billion transaction in 5 days. Normally it takes time to go through financials, dive into the details. So I think everything was somewhat rushed. And then you had an owner in Steve Ballmer who obviously had deep pockets.
Do you think he was handpicked, Grant?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think that, throughout the process, and I can say without a doubt that first and foremost, the NBA was very transparent. They had no favorites in this. They communicated to, I think, all the groups that, the Sterlings had every right to sell the team prior to, June 3rd. And so it was sort of a mad dash to the finish line to get to that point. I think Ballmer just, he has more money than time. And, because he's no longer running the team, running Microsoft, he had a lot of time. And so this was something that he just was willing to, whatever the highest bid is, I'll go $200-300 million more. And he did. So, that's hard to compete with. But, it was certainly, I like to say it was barbarians at the gate 2014 because it was crazy. I mean, you had all these folks, chasing after a prized asset and, just the numbers and the valuations just kind of went through the roof and certainly higher than what we were prepared to go to. But, at the end of the day, they're trying to get as much money as they can, and they did.
They certainly did.
You got to give them credit for that.
I have to run. When we come back from break, I'll give you a great plug for you and your father, but I'm up against a commercial break. Always great to talk to you, Grant. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Dan. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Grant Hill. He'll be doing a TV show with his father, Calvin Hill, so father-son experience.